99 Luftballon?
And apparently she didn't like the English language version because apparently the English language version is far less overtly political than
that is true.
99 Luftballon.
Also, that isn't a translation. So we had 99 road balloons.
And she had 99 balloons.
So some work and some absolutely don't. Why is it, do you think?
Have we started?
Yeah.
Oh, right. I'm just turning my phone off. Hang on.
Man turns phone off.
Oh,
Why is it, do you think, that some people look great in hats and some people look total pillocks? I speak as one of the latter category. Okay. My entire family all look really cool in almost any hat that you could put them in. Me, on the other hand, less so.
I think it's shape of head. I've got a really oddly shaped head. My head my forehead slopes back from my nose. So one of the reasons why I have this stupid hair is that it compensates for the fact that if you flatten it down, I look like Alien. And
which Alien?
The Alien,
What, from Alien?
The Alien from Alien. And when I was at university once, I decided that I would shave my head to see what it looked like.
I've often wondered about that.
So I did, and I was like, oh, yeah, that's very, very, very bad. I know, I'll compensate for it by wearing a hat. A baseball cap, I could pull off because it goes out forward, so it kind of compensated. But other than that, I can't wear any other. I wore a trilby for a while, an old battered trilby that was...
There's something jaunty about a trilby.
Yeah, but it was a knackered old trilby in a kind of Tom Waits way, and it belonged to a friend of mine at Manchester, and I sort of stole it off him, and I wore that. I affected that for many years. I can probably find a photograph of it somewhere. That was when I was called Henry. It was a whole different thing.
It's when you were called Henry.
Yeah, you know that in Manchester I was called Henry.
I mean, it's just, I feel as though we're on a clock here, and if we start to unpack
down this,
that's me. If you want to ask more about Mark being Henry, I think that's for questions.
Or indeed, if you were one of the people that remembers me being called Henry.
Then, I mean, if you want more on that, it's correspondence@kermode.com. The only hat that I tolerate is the one, I mean, bizarrely, it's the that kind of Tom Paxton, Jeremy Corbyn, kind of American military kind of cap. The only cap that Corbyn ever wore, probably still wears. It's like an American military khaki cap.
Oh, okay.
That one. I don't mind that, but
But you could pull off a baseball
cap.
No.
For no reason other than the sun. I'd wear one of those Australian things with corks.
Well, when I was first in London, I wore a baseball cap a lot. And in fact, there's a character in a book by Chris Fowler, who is me. The character only appears briefly, and as Kim Newman said, he's called something like Mrak Kermode. And it's described as perennial wearer of a baseball cap, because I had a Georgetown baseball cap, which is an Exorcist thing.
Anyway, welcome to, there's a surprise, your favourite film-based podcast. And what are you going to be reviewing later on when we get there?
We have a fantastically packed show. So in the first hour of the show, we're going to be reviewing Extraction.
In take one, yes.
In take one, we're going to be reviewing Extraction 2, which is the sequel to Extraction. Did you see Extraction?
I did.
Did you like it?
Yes, I did.
Pretty Red Dress, which is a new British movie. And we're going to be talking Flash with our special guests.
Andy and Barbara Muschietti, who are brother and sister, and the director and producer of
and it's movie. Muschietti, not Muschietti. Right. It's spelled Ieti, which is what I was saying, but apparently I was wrong.
It's Muschietti.
Muschietti.
And also there'll be extra takes, more of this kind of thing. Weekend watch list and the weekend not list. 5 are great and 3 you'll hate. Bonus reviews. What else are we going to do in those other uncharted territories?
We're going to be reviewing Inland, which is the new film starring Mark Rylance, and also something else which fails me right now at this moment. Oh yes, Greatest Day, which is the Take That stage musical coming to the screen. What?
Is it really the
It
Take
is the
That?
Take. Well, there was their songs.
Yes.
Then, they make a cameo appearance. If that's not a spoiler.
Pretentious Moi is currently Mark Kermode 15 against Mark Kermode 14, so getting very, very close. One Frame Back is films about obsessed fans, and you can support everything that we do. financially, culturally, and spiritually via Apple Podcasts, or head to extratakes.com for non-fruit-related devices. And if you're already a Vanguardista, as always, we salute you. We have a cheap ad to run here. Here we go. 2, 3, 4. I love this music. Mark, did you know that simple T-shaped top garments have become a part of human clothing since ancient times?
Yes, they were known as tunics, I believe.
That's quite correct. The modern T-shirt evolved from undergarments used in the 19th century and were adopted by miners, and some say stevedores. I would say stevedore because it comes from the Portuguese estivador, although let's just say dockers, as a convenient garment for hot environments.
Via the military, they became a widespread and popular item of clothing. Who can forget Marlon? It looks like Marion. Who can forget Marlon Brando sporting one in a streetcar named Desire?
Literally,
the vest is more of a
nobody. Well, now, Mark, the T-shirt has attained perfection with the Kermode and Mayo Take T-shirt, which not only will keep you cool in your work as a stevedore, let's just say docker or miner, but will lend you a sense of elegance and good taste at social gatherings and cinema outings.
We're making a meal of this, aren't we? I'm never without mine. So why not head to store.kermodeandmayo.com now and secure yours?
Store.kermodeandmayo.com. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying store.kermodeandmayo.com now.
Cheesy organ continues until it fades.
Sound you can hear is the sound of Sanjeev laughing at us doing adverts.
But that's only because he's jealous.
He said, every time you do an advert, I laugh.
Well, that's not necessarily quite the image we're trying to portray to our advertisers.
Incidentally, cameo Sanj in the movie that we're going to be talking about today.
Yes, and I messaged him and said, hey, seen this film? And he said, I made it in the edit then, because he thought it was going to be edited out.
Yeah, he never said anything about it when he was doing it.
I think he didn't know whether he was going to make the cut or not.
Okay.
An email from Abu Hussein. Hi, I'm an LTL back from the days when I was a teenager who would sprint out of the mosque back to the car after Friday prayers to listen to your latest takes on the radio. I'm writing regarding Mark's review of the film Transcendence from 2014. He felt that the movie had been unfairly judged and time would tell that the movie would be reevaluated in a much more forgiving light. I thought he was wrong and the movie was terrible. Most people who wrote in similarly agreed with that sentiment. Well, Mark was right and we were wrong, and here's why. In recent months, I think we've all been flabbergasted by the rapid development and successive iterations of ever more intelligent AI systems. We're back there again. ChatGPT notably being one. This has given increased prominence to the hard problem known as AI alignment. Bear with me. This is how we can have ever more intelligent AIs retain a link to human values and behave in ways which lead to desirous outcomes. Implicit within this is the assumption that human values are intrinsically good. Yes, we have values that are admirable, which AI should definitely follow. I believe ChatGPT programmers have done well to try and keep their particular iteration free of bigotry and prejudice, for example. However, we also have to be honest with ourselves and recognize that the totality of our values are not wholly good. We have flaws. Transcendence shows how such flaws can manifest. Johnny Depp may play a brilliant scientist, but his infatuation and to be together with the woman he loves contaminates the AI he has developed. It'll do anything, regardless of ethical consequences, to fulfill its remit. As such, this is a brilliant, far ahead of its time movie. It really asks that question of how we can align AI to not the sum of human values, but to the best of human values. We do not know the answer, but at least this problem has now been popularized. Thank you for taking the time to read my thoughts. I look forward to any discussion it may spark. As I remember, and I definitely have not gone back to watch Transcendence because I was one of the many who thought it was rubbish.
Oh, you did see it first time around?
Yes, because we discussed it on the program, and it wasn't that the tech stuff was unbelievable. It was just that it wasn't that Brad Pitt wasn't very good and the script was clunky.
Johnny Depp,
I beg your pardon. Johnny Depp. Sorry,
Brad Pitt was rubbish.
He was, wasn't he? He was very disappointing.
So rubbish in it. I don't even remember him being in it.
That there were, potholes, plot holes even, and
plot holes, and
the dialogue was poor. It was all that. That was the problem. It's not that the tech stuff was, I don't think to Abu's point, it has been reconsidered, but maybe it's time to reconsider it.
I really enjoyed it, and I still
Did
stand
you enjoy
by
it because it was Wally Pfister? Did you go in well disposed towards it because he was directing it?
I will concede this. I probably went in with my optimism levels turned up because it was Wally Pfister, dialed up because it was Wally Pfister. And it was just so lovely that the guy who used to shoot Greg Dark's straight-to-video erotic thrillers and then made an extraordinary name for himself, shooting Christopher Nolan movies, was now directing a great, big, thoughtful science fiction blockbuster with a then unassailed star in it.
Well, if you do indeed want to reconsider Transcendence, then feel free to watch it again. And which obviously you are free, of course. You feel free to watch it.
Well, people are allowed to. That's great. Thank you. Thank you. Well done.
Permission and let us know, and it can be talked about again. Maybe they got things right, which we didn't realise at the time, and maybe the clunky dialogue has improved over the years. And maybe it hasn't. Correspondence at kermode.com. What are we going to be talking about now?
Extraction 2.
Oh, jolly good. I like this.
So you saw the first ticket. So the 2020 Netflix Actioner, which was
Actioner?
Actioner.
That's not a word.
Action movie. Adapted from a graphic novel, originally called Dakar, written by Joe Russo, and directed by stunt specialist Sam Hargrave. So Chris Hemsworth was this world-weary mercenary Tyler Rake. He's enlisted to rescue in the original, the kidnapped son of an imprisoned crime lord. And to do that, he must fight and beat up a frankly staggering number of people, often in what appear to be single shots. He's also haunted by the ghosts of the past, the memory of a child, that this has somehow given him a death wish. And the main selling point was that the action sequences were really exciting, and they were. And you had Golshifteh Farahani, who kind of added a touch of class. And it did really well. It apparently, in 2020, Netflix revealed that it had been watched by 99 million households in its first 4 weeks.
Because normally they don't release
I know
stats.
They don't. No, they were happy, and it was the most ever for one of their original films, and then it became the fourth most watched straight to streaming title of 2020. So
Extraction 2 was inevitable, therefore.
Extraction 2 was inevitable. So again, Joe Russo, Sam Hargrave, Chris Hemsworth, Golshifteh Farahani, brilliantly. So we start off with Tyler kind of left for dead, but not dead. Put back together again, goes home and discovers, waiting on his doorstep, Idris Elba. Here's a clip.
You lost, mate. You, Rake? I asked you first.
Yeah, but my answer depends on yours. See, if you are Rake, then you are the myth of Mumbai, the legend that got the journalist out of Congo that took down the 2 gangs to save the mayor of Rio. I mean, the honor would be all mine, but I have to say, mate, you're not living up to the hype. What happened? You fall off a bridge?
How about you put my cup down, hop in your car, and f*** off?
It's not very nice, is it? Not when we've got a mutual friend who's offered you a job.
I don't have any friends.
Yeah, well, this particular individual seems to think you're the only one that can do it. Me, I'm not so convinced. Can you even pull the trigger like that?
That's a great clip. Don't you think? I think that's really good. What was that swear word that we bird-songed out? I mean, it could have been anything.
Could have been anything. Flipping blimmin' heck. Anyway, so it's basically a kind of a brief appearance to set up what has to be happening. So the mission this time is that he has to go and rescue the family of a ruthless Georgian gangster from the hellish prison in which they now live. This, weirdly enough, kind of appears to relate to, you wrote a book in which families go into prisons.
Families. Yes,
so
I did blame that.
Blame. And in this particular case, he's gone into prison, but he has been allowed for his family to go into the prison with him. Apparently, this was something that happened in the past. So they're now in this hellish prison. So mission number 1, go in and get the family, although not so much the terrible gangster. And the rescue mission is it's great. It's like lots of, apparently one-shot labyrinthine insanity in which people get shot and stabbed and punched and smashed and drilled. And there's a point in it when Chris Hemsworth keeps on fighting despite the fact that he's on fire, which is really...
Okay, but that's what I would expect.
Exactly. Then later on, there's another fight sequence which takes place on the glass roof of a skyscraper. So it's all hangy, dangly, vertiginous, and all that stuff really makes me, I mean, I'm so scared of heights, and I'm so scared of the idea of having a fight on glass which might break. And then there's another absolutely terrific nail-biting action sequence that takes place on a train that is being pursued by whirlycopters, and the camera goes through the train and over the train and round the side of the train. This is him doing it, shooty, and it's that stuff is really high power. Now, there is some character detail. None of it's relevant. There is some plot, about brothers and families, but it's in exactly the same way as the Fast movie. It's just a breathing space. It's just like a little bit of plot, and then we'll get on to the next action sequence. None of it makes any sense at all. Doesn't matter, because the choreography of the action sequences is so well done that you go, okay, but this is what I paid for.
Yes.
There are 3 big set pieces that are absolutely worth the time that it will take to watch the film, because they're extended and they're, people often say nail-biting action. And you go, yeah, is it? Watching this, it was like, wow, yes, my nails are feeling like they need to be bitten because is he going to fall through that glass thing? Is he going to get knocked off the top of that train by the whirlycopter? Is he going to get out of the prison? What's he going to do now that he's on fire? And so I think you'll really enjoy it. There is a plot. It doesn't matter at all.
Excellent. So would it be fair to say you're an Extractor fan? Also, here's an idea.
Doesn't quite work with an Extraction fan.
Yeah, but he's the Extractor.
He's the Extractor.
So how about this for an idea for a follow-up? The Extractor versus the Equalizer. And who do you think would come out on top? That would be great, wouldn't it? Because they both can do anything. And
did you watch the film of the Equalizer? Just
watch 2 and then 1 in that order.
Why?
I don't know. It was the way
turned up.
It was the way it came up.
But honestly, I think you'll enjoy Extraction. If you enjoyed Extraction 1,
yeah,
you'll enjoy Extraction 2. And I'm a huge fan of really well choreographed action sequences. And there are 3 set pieces in this in which you go, that's it. Well done. Well done. That is what I want from an action
movie. Can it really be nail-biting if you know that Hemsworth is going to survive? Because he has to at least the end of the movie. And then there'll be Extraction 3. And so therefore it's nail-biting, but,
It's just, I mean, yes, what you're saying is logically true, but when they're on the top of a glass roof of a skyscraper and they're shooting the glass and the glass, I mean, I'm so scared of heights.
Is it up to Mission Impossible levels of thrilldom?
Some of the stunt sequences are worthy of that level of film.
Okay, and where can I see this? This is Netflix then. This is just it's not even they're not even giving it to the cinema for
I believe
half a minute.
It might have a brief cinema release. Simon Poole, is it in cinemas at all? Straight to Netflix. But I mean, it's fun. It's really, really good fun.
Okay, Extraction 2 is available to watch now. But don't watch it now because we have lots of top business still to come, Mark. What do you do?
Oh, is this the reading out bit? Hang on. No, that says you. Oh, Pretty Red Dress and The Flash. Sorry.
We'll be back before you can say, all our knowledge begins with the senses, proceeds then to the understanding and ends with reason. There is nothing higher than reason.
Go on.
Immanuel Kant.
Was a real...
Who was very rarely stable. Heidegger, and so on. Anyway, thank you for giving us some wisdom in English, which actually makes a change. Now, there's an email here from Jonathan Jarry.
Jonathan Jarry.
Jonathan Jarry, yes.
Okay.
I'm a science communicator at McGill University in Canada, and I once taught you how to do a French Quebecer accent. I always thought it was
Quebecois.
Yeah, but that's not what he's written. He's written Quebecer, as in Quebec, and then ER at the end. Anyway,
obviously we forgot.
I taught you how to do a French Quebecer accent on the show following your interview with Denis Villeneuve. I think I could be of help once more. The story of Mark's friend who couldn't browse for records in a record shop because of an urgent need to use the toilet rings true. It's called the Mariko Aoki phenomenon.
Right.
The Mariko Aoki phenomenon, and it's usually associated with browsing for books. February 1985 issue of Japan's Honsō Zashi, which translates as book magazine, that blew the lid on this phenomenon. The magazine printed a short letter from a woman named Mariko Aoki, who had realized that wandering inside a bookstore triggered this urge to relieve herself.
Well, Simon Poole said that it happens to him in libraries, yeah?
Following publication, the magazine received several reports from readers who regularly experienced the same. Their next issue had a 14-page feature article on this unsolved mystery.
Wow.
The horse was out of the barn. The Mariko Aoki phenomenon was apparently, according to Book Magazine's sensationalistic headline, shaking the bookstore industry. Maybe that's why they've all closed. Many hypotheses have been put forward to explain the phenomenon, including the smell of books, stress, and simply the illusion of an association, meaning that it's not really a thing, but now that it's part of pop culture, people notice when they feel the urge in a bookstore and not when they're anywhere else. I wrote an article about it, and I had to call it the unbearable poopness of bookstores. Tickety-tong, down with the Nazis and up with the bowel movement when it is inconveniently coming down. So there you go. So
there we are.
It's very interesting, and which kind of now suggests that if you want to run a successful bookstore,
you need a bathroom.
You do. You absolutely do, and you could make that a feature. Never mind fancy coffee or croissant or something like that. You don't need that. You need a bathroom.
Well, it also can't be completely unconnected that quite often in the smallest room in the house, as it used to be referred to, although in many people's houses it's now the biggest room in the house, they have a selection of reading material that is generally thought, it's like, your grandfather would go to the outside Kazi and take a copy of the Daily Mirror with him, because it wasn't just because you need something to read whilst you relieve yourself, because it doesn't actually take that long. But there was a thing about browsing through stuff helps you to try hard.
Clem from France, hello to the whole team.
They're more on this same subject.
Just wanted to butt in, double pun highly intended, with a piece of information you may find interesting.
Okay.
In France, there is a pretty famous rule of three, known as la règle des trois C, the rule of the three, so it should be la règle des trois C, the rule of the three C's.
Okay.
Café, clope, caca.
Coffee, cigarettes, poo.
Yep. I just looked it up to check. But
there we are.
I didn't know that clope was French for cigarette. Anyway, there it is. Café, clope, caca. Tried and confirmed by yours truly when I was a smoker and a coffee drinker. The trifecta is real.
Yes.
TTOF, H2JI, all that jazz. Hello to Simon.
I mean, that makes sense though, because that's to do with adrenaline, isn't it? That both caffeine and nicotine are stimulants, and they, yeah, absolutely.
Bruce McLaughlin, dear flight attendant, and
there's more
inflatable.
Or is this
autopilot.
different?
You'll see. Long-term, sort of 2005 legacy listener, and I think third-time emailer. I was listening to the discussion in last week's podcast about people who regularly use film quotes in everyday life. It made me think of something that definitely wasn't everyday life, but was, I think, one of the finest uses of a film quote ever. And I saw it on, of all things, Air Crash Investigation. QF-72 was a Qantas flight from Singapore to Perth in 2008. It suffered two sudden and uncommanded drops of thousands of feet, causing negative G in the plane, which led to several injuries to passengers and crew. The plane had to make an emergency landing in the far north of Western Australia. As they were coming in to land, the already shaken crew were terrified that another sudden loss of altitude would cause them to crash. The atmosphere in the cockpit was extremely tense, as you can imagine. Mm-hmm. It was at that moment that the pilot said to his crew, "Looks like I picked the wrong day to stop sniffing glue."
That's very good.
Well, no one died, but there was still an investigation into the incident. Investigators were most impressed when they found this on the cockpit voice recorder.
That's very good.
That's not normally when you hear about the cockpit voice recorder.
That is cool in the face of a crisis to make that gag.
That's from Bruce Tiggly-Tong. Down with the Nazis, but not down with passenger aeroplanes mid-flight. Box office top 10. At 85, Love Without Walls.
Which I think is powerful. I think Jane Gold is a very fine director. We've had a lot of a lot of people got in touch to say that in Irish, it's Niall. In Scottish, it's Neil. So I believe it would have been Niall, in which case, so my apologies for getting that wrong last week.
Number 20 is Evil Dead Rise.
Which it is it's fun and it's gory and that's okay. It's not scary, but it's definitely better than the much more straight-faced Fede Alvarez reboot.
Number 11 is Medusa Deluxe. Paul says, Dear Fontage and Coiffure, just got back from a screening of Medusa Deluxe, and the words to describe how I'm feeling are perplexed, confused, and joyous.
Good.
It is a beautiful film that uses the continuous shot style really effectively, creating tension and sense of continual movement, like watching a large dominoes display, and you're not sure if it's going to stop before the end. It has really impressive detail of the hair, showcasing it as an art form. The deconstructed murder mystery style did bamboozle, perplex, and confuse me at times, but the final scene during the credits somehow brought it all together with great joy. I'm still not fully sure what every part of the film was about, but there was something very satisfying about it. It may not be for those who want a clear narrative, but it was certainly a fun and vibrant cinematic experience that oozes the passion that Thomas Hardiman has for storytelling and film.
I see. I think that's absolutely spot on. I think it oozes enthusiasm for cinema, and you don't need to understand all of it because it's not meant to be sort of tied up neatly. As I said, one of his great idols is Ken Russell.
Number 10 is War Pony, not a Tom Robinson song, but it could be in the future.
And I think, was that War Baby?
Yes, just change it slightly.
You were a war pony. Doesn't quite work, does it? So it's an intriguing drama, co-directed by Riley Keough, set in South Dakota Reservation. Non-professional cast used to great effect. Won the Camera d'Or, which is the first feature award at Cannes. And not bad at all.
Number 9 is it right to say more?
Well, I would say more. So this wasn't
Maurh.
Maurh, yes. So it's Punjabi language film, not press screened. So if anyone's seen it, let us know.
Correspondence at KermodeandMayo.com. Number 8 here. Number 23 in the States is Chevalier.
I have to say that's gone in lower than I thought it was going to. I mean, you and I had a discussion about whether or not Chevalier would be a hit. And how many screens was it playing on? So anyway, I thought it would go in higher than that, but it's an interesting film. I think it's a solidly 3-star movie with a very, very good central performance by Kelvin Harrison, who, if you haven't seen it yet, go back and watch the video of Simon interviewing Kelvin Harrison Jr. in which he...
And Lucy Boynton.
Yeah, and Lucy Boynton. No, but the reason I was saying Kelvin Harrison is because he wears your glasses all the way through.
Yeah, and
whereas she just
fantastic.
looks fantastic without wearing your glasses.
Yes. It's never happened before, but anyway, it was quite fun. 7 here, 7 in the States, Super Mario Brothers movie.
Just unbelievably successful, still hanging on in there. And the fact that it's in there above Chevalier even now. In how many weeks has it been? I mean, it's 10th week. It's just bonkers. But I mean, yeah. So looking at the number of locations, Chevalier is playing in 40 screens. No, it's not. Chevalier is playing in 283 screens. Super Mario is still in 488 in its 10th week. It's astonishing.
Boogeyman is at number 6,
which I think is an interesting, well done, generic film. I like the director very much. I would like him to do something less generic, like The Host.
Fast X or Fast 10 is at number 5 here, number 6 in America.
Family.
And number 4 here, 4 in the States, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3.
Still doing very well, particularly considering some of the subject matter is very dark.
Little Mermaid is at number 3 here and number 3 in the States. Here's an email from Mark Haynes. Dear Comeuppance and Good Riddance. Satire. He says, LTL and FTE moved to email you about this film because of the impact it had both on me and on my 2 daughters. Mark says, it is not the fact that both young girls sat gripped for over 2 hours, nor the impressive, catchy Lin-Manuel Miranda show tunes that are on constant repeat in our house that caused me to email for the first time. It is the casting.
Okay.
I am the white father of black daughters who rarely get to see leads in children's films, let alone Disney princesses that are black. To also have a black queen in the film was the icing on the cake. It may sound ridiculous when talking about a mermaid princess to say, if you can't see it, you can't be it. But now when my girls play with their friends, they too can be Ariel, and they can also think of themselves in powerful roles and worthy of, in quotes, happy ever after. The normalization of ethnicity-blind casting is to be celebrated. I sat next to my girls, holding hands in the cinema, feeling better about the world, and was inflicted with a mild case of PALS. This is parent-affected lachrymosity syndrome. Either that or dust in my eye, of course. I understand that Mark didn't see the need for a new version of Little Mermaid, but did praise the mixed casting in his review. However, I wanted to give an alternative perspective and to underline how important films like this are. Loving the show, Steve. Hello to Jason. And thanks to you and the great redactor for many hours of emotional support entertainment you give me over the years. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you for the email. You may well remember that when the trailer for Little Mermaid first dropped, there was this kind of viral video of young kids watching the trailer and seeing for the first time, Ariel's black. And the joy on their faces immediately followed by the, call it what it is, by the racist backlash of lunatics who went, well, she can't be, but it's not right, it's not, she can't because he's Danish and she's what, And it was, in itself, that is vindication and reason for the film to exist. That it caused that joyous reaction in those kids watching the trailers and that it caused that outrage from those Trump-supporting, wingnuts whose leader is currently been indicted on 34 and 37 charges, most recently felony counts, but they still think should be president. 80% of Republicans apparently still think that Trump should be president, even if he's convicted. Why? Because they're mad.
If you want to see a disappointing mermaid, go to Copenhagen and look at the statue of the Little Mermaid, and it's not really worth going to see. Rob, number two is number two here. Number one in the States, Transformers: Rise of the Beasts. Rob says, LTL, SDE, an avid Transformers fan and collector. When Michael Bay ravaged the beloved Transformers IP between 2007 and 2017, much time was spent trying to find the good among the bad, as they were the only live-action movies that we Transformers fans had to watch. When Travis Knight's Bumblebee was released in 2018 and it showed the world what a good Transformers movie can be,
cheers.
Full of heart, fun and a dash of action and characters that aren't just cannon fodder making guttural nonsense noises or obscured by motion blur and handheld camera shakes, I thought Bumblebee was excellent and was what the Transformers franchise sorely needed, and I spent the next 5 years eagerly anticipating its sequel. I agree with Mark in that Bumblebee is the better film, but Rise of the Beast didn't exactly have much else to live up to, given how low the bar had been set by Michael Bay movies. As a fan of the franchise, it didn't blow me away as much as I would have liked it to, but I do feel satisfied with the movie, and I'm now looking forward to the next installment.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, once Michael Bay stopped directing the films, they got infinitely better, and this is not as good as Bumblebee, but it is better than any of the Michael Bay abominations. Number one in the UK, number two in the States is Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Deservedly so.
Elliot, age 27. Mark and Simon, first of all, please find attached a framed signed poster, courtesy of your good selves, soon to grace my walls, of Robert Eggers and Heavy Metal Worship. A few of these left in the store, apparently. There you go. And there's a photograph of the poster, which we signed.
Wow.
Available at the merch store. I just came back from seeing Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. I wasn't a fan of the first one, so I did go in with some trepidation, and unfortunately, everything I disliked about the first movie came back with fruition for this one. Firstly, the animation. Sure, it's quite the technical achievement, but it's horrible to look at. The glitchiness, frame rate, and color blasting just doesn't work. The narrative is as shallow as my local swimming baths, and the characters, particularly Gwen, have about as much charisma as a Tory politician. Can I just say, just in parentheses, down with charismatic politicians in general?
Yes, exactly.
Charisma isn't.
Exactly.
Give me lack of charisma politician.
Yeah. And again, to refer to the previous conversation, would you like Joe Biden, a boring old man who has got a massive amount of great things done, or would you like Trump, a charismatic crypto-fascist lunatic supported by bonkers, allegedly Christian right-wingers?
It wasn't a conversation, though. It was a monologue. Just saying.
What was a monologue?
The Trumpian stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Truthfully, though, Elliot continues, my biggest issue with these movies is the message it sends. The phrase that was bandied about with the first movie was, anyone can be Spider-Man, which, whether taken literally or not, is simply false. You can't be whatever you want to be in life, and you are not entitled to anything. The world owes you nothing. I believe messages like this are incredibly harmful to humanity. It sets out unrealistic aspirations that 99% of people to walk this mortal coil will simply never achieve. For the record, I don't like having this view. I sat in the cinema with two friends, absolutely chewing up the scenery. I found it to be my least favourite cinema experience of the year. Is what it is. Can't like them all. Down with shaky animation. Best wishes, Elliot.
Okay. Well, I mean, firstly, thank you for having the good grace to say this is what I think. I can't change what I think. I'm not delighted or pleased about it, because that's actually the kind of the essence of difference of opinion, isn't it? It's like, I'm sorry, this is, I like the Rubettes. A lot of people don't. There are many reasons for not liking them. None of them are going to affect me. I really did enjoy Across the Spider-Verse, but that thing about, I'm not sure that I took away the same message that you did about, you the world owes you a living and you are entitled. I mean,
I haven't seen it, but that, you can be whatever you want to be. You can achieve anything is palpable nonsense. And
yes, it is palpable nonsense, but it is palpable nonsense that occurs in a number of stories.
Of course. No, absolutely. And Elliot is obviously saying this is just one of the movies that I don't like because of that reason.
Yes, but that's partly like the Nick Hornby question about whether or not pop music is bad for you, because pop songs about love are bad for you because they give you unrealistic expectations of love. And you go, yeah, but I still like the Rubettes.
Coming up, we're going to be talking to Andy and Barbara Muschietti, who are the director and producer, sibling duo responsible for The Flash. That's on the way in a second. Now, today's guests are a power sibling duo, also further proof, as we started to talk about last week, of Stephen King's influence on almost every conversation that we have, because I'm joined by the director of The Flash, Andy Muschietti, who directed It and It Chapter 2, plus his sister, Barbara Muschietti, who's the producer of The Flash. You can hear my interview with them after this clip from The Flash.
So let's imagine that it is in fact possible for you to run faster than the speed of light, and in so doing, travel back in time. It still would be wildly irresponsible.
I knew you were going to say that.
Yes, because Barry, if you were to go into the past, any interaction you had with your parents or yourself, you step on the wrong blade of grass, you have no idea what the consequences to that could be.
No, I know. The butterfly effect, right?
Yes.
I get it. But Bruce, I could fix things.
You could also destroy everything.
And that is a clip from The Flash. I'm delighted to say I've been joined by its director, Andy Muschietti, and producer, Barbara Muschietti. Hello, how are you?
I'm very good, Simon, thank you.
I'm in my studio / spare room. Where are you guys?
We're in Madrid. We had our Madrid premiere yesterday night, and we're here doing press for the day. And we're delighted because we love Spain. We lived in Spain for about 14 years. So, the Spanish people in Spain are very dear to our hearts.
Introduce us, both of you, please, to The Flash. We've seen The Flash before. This is first solo outing. Just introduce us to this picture.
Yeah, as you said, Simon, it's a first solo picture. It's a character that has been introduced before in previous movies. And this is the story where Barry realizes that he's running so fast that he can go back in time significantly. And the first thing he does is tries to go back and save his mom.
And just explain just a little bit there about what has happened to his mom and why he is so determined to go back and change things.
Well, yes, as for people who don't know, Barry Allen's mom has been murdered around 10 years ago.
When he was an 8-year-old boy.
And his dad has been incarcerated, framed for that. So his life turned a pretty bad turn at that when he was a child. So, yeah, now he's going to do it. And everybody recommends him not to do it.
Yes.
Including his friend Batman.
Well, including most of the audience, I suspect, because I remember a Superman movie where Superman flies so fast around the world that he goes back in time, and it's never a good idea.
No, it's never a good idea, but it works for him.
That's true, because Lois survives. That's absolutely true. How did you both get involved into this world of the DC universe? How far back are we going now?
So we had the DC, like our loving of DC.
No, just when you were, because the last thing I saw from both of you was the It movie and then the sequel
Yes.
to It. At what stage did they say to both of you, can you get on board with the Flash movie?
So we did the 2 It films with Walter Hamada, who at that point was the key executive at New Line Pictures. So we had a relationship with him. He, during It 2, became the head of DC Films. at Warner Brothers. And from that moment, he started nudging us to jump ship and work with him at DC because we had a great relationship. There was a lot of trust. And he tapped us for a few projects, but the one that lit the spark was The Flash.
Now, and can you just explain where this sits in the DC extended universe? Because this was made, as I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong, this was made under the previous DC studio leadership, and there are now new CEOs. Is this the last of that batch? Is this the transition to the new batch? Is it the start of the new batch? How do we see this film?
Well, there's this was made before James Gunn, and so that's a good question, actually. James Gunn loves this movie as well as Peter, as well as everyone on this side. Wait and see how this movie works, I think, because I trust that the future architecture of DC will be fantastic. Again, this movie is fantastic as well, Simon. And,
Right.
I think it's about, we certainly hope that this movie is absorbed by the new universe, and it does establish the multiverse, which is something something that could be used in the future world.
Yeah.
But I think that, we still don't know.
Right early on in your film, I enjoyed Flash being a little bit annoyed with his lot in life. And he describes himself as the janitor of the Justice League. He's just clearing up the mess. Can you just explain a little bit about what's happening there?
Yeah, that is correct. We find him 5 years after we saw him for the first time active in the Justice League. And I thought it was a good place to find him in a place that it's stalled and frustrated and nothing seems to work right before he discovers that his powers can take him one step beyond what his life is.
He's also, Barry Allen is younger. He, compared to a character like Batman that is, so testosteronic.
That's a good word.
And clearly doesn't clean up his own mess. It's up to Flash, to Barry Allen to be sweeping behind Batman, and he doesn't enjoy this, of course.
Yeah. How important? I think we can talk about Michael Keaton. So I've mentioned it. So I'm hoping that's okay. How important was persuading Michael Keaton to get involved with this film for the project? How important was that?
Very much. We all got our hopes very high when we first thought of it, and we wouldn't drop it. So I don't know how it would have been if he said no, but I think he was as excited as us.
Whose job was it? Your job, Barbara, as the producer, to go and persuade him? Did you both go?
We both went, but in the end, I can do everything I can, but Michael is gonna buy in, only if Andy establishes the trust to guide him. I can tap dance my way to the moon, and that's still not going to be enough for Michael Keaton to jump in. So we were both there, but the bond is done between a director and an actor who are, bottom line, going to be there in the front line getting that scene.
And did he need persuading, Andy, or did he jump at the chance? Because it feels to me it'll be like a gut instinct, won't it? Do you want to go back and do this again, or don't you?
Well, there was a bit of jumping in and a bit of persuasion, because there were two sides to it. I guess one was everything that Batman was or Batman is up to now. And I think not obviously, but Ethan was excited about coming back. What I did was pitch him the story. I pitched what my ideas were in this movie, and basically where we find Bruce Wayne 30 years after, and what my intentions were for the character. Of course, with a lot of respect, because he basically created this character with this version of the character along with Tim Burton. So my persuasion, if you will, had to do with telling him what my expectations were about the character, and that was our focus of our main focus of our conversations.
As a director and producer, can you explain from your point of view what it is that Ezra Miller brings to this role?
Magic. Ezra is unique. Ezra is incredibly smart. They are brilliant. Ezra is an incredible comedian, and I can't imagine having anybody but them playing this particular role.
Andy?
They brought a brilliance in comedy, in emotions, and commitment to the character that I've never seen before. Probably the best experience I had with an actor.
There is a line in your film which really, I think your audience will take note of, kind of jumps out when Flash mentions the lack of mental health care that members of the Justice League get. And it's sort of a joke, but also given the controversies and allegations and so on, which have come with Ezra in recent years, and Ezra has apologized for their behavior and getting treatment for their mental health and so on. But that line in your film carries extra weight, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't our intention. Obviously, that was just a line we created. So, I mean, there is no relationship really to that. We can tell you that, you know, we have a lot of empathy for people who need help, especially when it comes to mental health issues. And Ezra has been taking the necessary steps to recover, and we support him in that.
Was there any time where you feared for the future of the picture?
No.
Not really. The thing, Simon, is we always had a lot of confidence in this movie, and our confidence only grew as we went. You know, we started with a very good story, with a better script, and then the execution made this project even better, and confidence for the movie just grew up, thanks in part to Ezra's incredible performance. And, you know, over the course of a year, post-production, again, our trust and confidence in this movie just grew bigger and bigger. So there was really no moment where we, you know, stuttered or lost confidence in the creation of this.
I think we're fascinated with the brother-sister dynamic going on here, and whether siblings get on well. People will have different experiences of that. The idea of working on a daily basis with your sibling is an intriguing one. Do you, I don't know, Barbara, just first, do you just have the same director-producer conversations that would happen normally? Like, it's time to stop filming. Everyone needs to go home. You spent all the money.
100%. We have them, but they're a lot less polite. Because we're siblings and we solve our differences very fast. Because in the end, we want the same, and we have such trust for each other that we understand that when one is asking something from the other, it's really, I have worked with other directors, Andy has worked with other producers, but this is the best. I mean, the trust that we have for each other is, you know, unconditional.
So, Andy, when your sister tells you to stop filming, you stop?
No. The short answer is no. The long answer is there's discussions, more fighting. And basically there's a whole conversation about why it's important to me to keep on shooting. Anyway, it goes on and on for a while, and then I keep going for a little bit. There's a little bit of overtime, and yes, that's a long answer.
No. But
you know, tell you that sometimes you win, sometimes I win.
It's fascinating. Andy and Barbara Muschietti, thank you very much indeed for your time. Wish you all the best and enjoy the sunshine. Andy and Barbara Muschietti, director and producer of The Flash.
And thank you for correcting me on my pronunciation, which I'd
well,
always said Muschietti.
It could be anything, but that's the one that
that's correct.
That's what they say. So you know.
Yes, that's right. So I say Kermode. Other people say Kermode,
but they're wrong.
They're wrong.
Exactly right,
Mr. Mayo.
So The Flash. We have seen The Flash before, but The Flash hasn't had his own picture.
No. So worth mentioning, because you covered an awful lot of ground in that interview. The screenplay is by Christine Hodson, whose CV includes Bumblebee and Birds of Prey, just because that just didn't come up. So to recap very briefly, and I'm very conscious of the fact that at the screening that I saw, there was a thing at the beginning which said, look, please don't give any spoilers, you know, allow people to enjoy. And I'm so fine.
What do you, so yes, but there are some...
No, there are some things
that I think we, like in the interview, we talk about Michael Keaton.
Precisely.
When I saw the I didn't know anything about that, but I think that is now out there. And
I didn't either.
Right.
And when it came up in the interview, there's a part of me kind of flinched, like, isn't that one of the things? But then, of course, as everyone said, no, that is out there in the ether. So to tread carefully by essentially saying things that were in the interview. So the story is Barry Allen, Flash, can run so fast that he can go back in time. He discovers that this is the case and he is advised against doing it because the butterfly effect is very dangerous, but he immediately tries to go back and save his mum, who was murdered when he was 8. His father is currently in prison, framed for the murder. There is a whole thing about video surveillance camera footage that may or may not exonerate his father, blah, 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 blah. As you yourself said in the very first Superman movie, after the unfortunate event involving Lois Lane, Superman flies around the world so fast that he goes back in time and he's able to fix the problem. Probably the only time in the history of time traveling that doing that
gone well
has worked out and everyone's happy about it and hooray. So when he goes back to a world in which the Batman that he knew is not Batman in the past. Indeed, there is a central gag about it's a different Batman. It's almost as if you change from one multiplex screen to another multiplex screen to a world in which Batman is now played by, and because you brought this up in the interview, and as you said, it's out there in the world, it's Michael Keaton. Michael Keaton's Batman, who was the Tim Burton original Batman, is now washed up and bedraggled. I mean, it's interesting that Keaton's career goes from Batman through Birdman back to Batman in this, and he enjoys it very much. There's also, and again, I don't think this is a plot spoiler because it's also now a world in which Back to the Future didn't star Michael J. Fox, because we were talking about this in the review of Still, that Michael J. Fox was not the first actor to star in Back to the Future. They shot for 2 weeks with Eric Stoltz, and there is apparently still one shot in Back to the Future which has Stoltz in it, in just the same way that if you watch Apocalypse Now, the overhead helicopter shot of the boat leaving the dock, that's Harvey Keitel. It's so these things happen. So he appears to have slipped through the streams and entered a different version of the timeline. And throughout the film, there will be encounters with incarnations of characters who in other movie franchises have been, movie incarnations have been played by other actors. So in a way, you're sort of in the Doctor Who world, in which it's possible for the 3 Doctors or the 5 Doctors, for different people who've inhabited the role of Doctor Who, to meet and coexist. I mean, as I said, this when we first started talking about multiverse stuff, this is really the first time I ever saw that done was the 3 Doctors. Well, how can they all be together in the same room? Wow, it's completely mind blowing. There is also, of course, the issue that when you go back in time, you can meet yourself, and that's very, very dangerous. As everyone's always said, don't go back in time, don't meet yourself. Terrible things.
See Back to the Future.
Precisely. So, in terms of the thing about you go into a world in which other actors who have played these characters before can coexist. So that's not dissimilar to Spider-Man No Way Home, which was a lot of fun. And again, everyone kind of went out of their way not to spoil something, but I think people kind of had an assumption of what was happening. More significant, however, the sort of multi-timeline, fractured world multiverse, I think was done much better in the Spider-Verse animations. And it's interesting that right now, Spider-Verse is sitting at the top of Across the Spider-Verse is the #1 in the UK box office. And it's dazzling, and it's doing really, really well with audiences, and people love it. So I think there is an obvious precedent both in the live-action Spider-Man movies and in the animated Spider-Man movies that this kind of fractured multiverse, multi-stranded parallel universes thing is being done better in those movies. This is very full of fan jokes. And I mean, I understand the fan service thing because I'm a fan of horror movies, and I've always, when horror movies nod towards other horror movies, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. This is absolutely full of fan jokes. I mean, I don't want to mention any of them because there are a couple of little Easter eggs in there that even I thought, oh, that's cute. That's nicely done. That's a good gag. But I don't think it's doing anything that the Spider-Man franchise did better. The Ezra Miller thing, you asked the question about what does Ezra Miller bring to the role, because obviously Ezra Miller is in a complicated situation in terms of their, the things that have happened in their private life. And I know that they have now committed to, apology.
It's troublesome and problematic.
It's troublesome and problematic.
For sure.
And the answer was, well, they bring magic. I don't actually think that's true. I mean, I think Ezra Miller was terrific in We Need to Talk About Kevin. I remember seeing them in that film and thinking, wow, that's a terrifically exciting screen presence. I don't know that is actually true in terms of the role of the Flash. I mean, it's fine. It's a kind of, cheeky, sly, slightly. I just don't know that performance is as charismatic or as absolutely no one else could do this better. I think it's fine, but I think it's only fun. That's partly, I think, because the character of the Flash is, it's complicated to get that character right, and it's complicated to make that character anything more than a cipher for a whole bunch of plot devices. And there's a kind of dead ringers, David Cronenberg, dead ringers, acting with yourself thing, which is, complex to do. And I think they get that right. But I don't know that what they do is give you an incarnation of a character. You're looking like you were about to say something. Please, go ahead.
When Barry puts on the gear for the first time, I thought the Flash just looked like David Walliams. That was my problem. It looked like David Walliams was being the Flash. That's all. I was not agreeing.
But are we on the same page about that?
I like the intimate stuff. I like the personal conversations. Like you say, there are some cute jokes. When it got to the multiverse, I thought it was a mess, and my heart sank just because we've seen it. It does nothing. It just breaks. You can do anything. Look at what we've done. Look what we brought back. And the multiverse, for which there is no shred of proof anywhere, is now become this place where they go to tell a story, and I think it's boring.
Okay, well, without wishing to pick, I think the no shred of proof thing, if we take that, we're going to wipe out most of horror cinema and most of science fiction cinema. Demonic possession doesn't exist, but I love The Exorcist.
I know. Well, you can do, but you could do space and you could do Krypton. You don't have to do multiverse. That's all I'm saying.
I think that if you look at Across the Spider-Verse, Into the Spider-Verse, those are films that are doing multiverse interestingly. I think Everything Everywhere was doing it interestingly. I think for two-thirds of Flash, and it's too long, it's kind of fun. There's fun to be had. And it's a relief after the doom and gloomathons of the Snyderverse. It's kind of, at least it's bright and shiny. I think in the later sections, it becomes fantastically video gamey. It is surprising that a film of this level has got some of the shonkiest CG I've seen. Some of the CG is good. Some of it is really like...
Maybe that was part of the multiverse problem then. The fact that when you're using CG that heavily, it's working very hard.
Yeah, and CG does a lot of heavy lifting, and it's bad CG will just absolutely take the wind out of anything. So I think that the third act is exhausting rather than exhilarating, and I think that and the final stings is just like, oh, really. So I think it's fine. I came out of it thinking, I want this to stop. And you talked about, are we the end of this or the beginning of that?
Yes. I genuinely think they don't know.
Yeah, no, I genuinely think they don't know. And I genuinely think that the numbers will tell us what the answer to that question is. But I think artistically it's wrung. It's wrung dry, right? Isn't it?
I think it probably is, and obviously there are also other question marks over what happens to Ezra Miller in the future. So
yeah,
we'll wait and see.
But there's stuff in it there's stuff in it that I enjoyed. There's 2 gags that I laughed out loud at, and there's 1 Easter egg that I thought, that's really smart.
Ads in a moment. First, let's step again with great joy and a little skip in your step
fear,
into our laughter
panic.
lift. Hey, Mark, the good lady ceramicist here indoors bought a Sylvester Stallone pillow this week and put it in the middle of the bed. Since then, things have been rocky between us. Bit of a kerfuffle in
I sort of saw that coming.
Yeah, bit of a kerfuffle in showbiz North London this week. A lady from up the road set fire to all of her bills in the middle of the road. Had to call the fire brigade and everything. What's her name, I hear you ask?
What's her name?
This is the old Four Tops joke.
What's her name?
Bernadette. Some more bad news, though, Mark. I discovered this week that I'm colourblind. The news came right out of the pink.
Hey!
What are you going to be reviewing next, by the way?
I'm going to be reviewing it's called Pretty Red Dress, but I was going to be, or in your case, Pretty Blue Dress.
Thank you. Back after this, unless you're a Vanguardista, in which case I always feel more intelligent after reading your work, and your service will not be interrupted. A good email from Tom. I've written at the top of this email, RTFQ. So it's one of those kind of exam advice thing, which all falls under the general. I think I should have mentioned this before. My kids had a geography teacher who
read
the flipping question. This is the most important thing. Yes. Okay, this is the most important thing. And if you don't read the question, then really you're up against it. Tom says, Mark and Simon, read Simon's story of the test within a test, where the first question was to put down your pen and leave the room. I actually had this experience, or one very similar, from my English teacher, Mr. Taylor, while at school. It still lingers 2.5 decades later. I think this is a great story. Mr. Taylor was determined to teach us to read an entire exam through before starting. I remember this.
Yes, so that you know what you might spend your time on.
Yeah, and the choices that you have to make, and maybe your brain is starting to work on some of the latest questions. So we could figure out which questions would need the most time to answer. Yes. After a year of him repeating this advice ad nauseum, we were presented with a mock exam, which, in large, bold letters at the top, instructed us to read all the questions thoroughly before answering.
Yes.
Being the 11-year-old numpty that I was, I, along with most of the class, ignored the message and began answering the first question.
Yeah.
It wasn't long before somebody noticed that not everyone was in a rush to get through the exam, and one by one, the pennies dropped for the rest of us. A quick scan through the question paper revealed that the last question on the back page read, "If you've not written anything yet, put your pen down and I'll give you a Mars bar at the end of the class." Now, sweets were the height of contraband at school, and Mr. T...
They were absolutely
always dished out the good stuff in the king-size variety.
Wow.
I did not, says Tom, I did not get a Mars bar that day, but his lesson on time management proved much more valuable and, along with many words of wisdom he imparted, is now hard-coded into my brain. Good teachers leave a lasting impact, and Mr. Taylor was one of the best.
That's very good.
It's genius to put it as the last question.
Very, very good. There is, and I'm sure it's apocryphal, there is a story about an exam question, and this is usually told like, well, it was Oxford or Cambridge, so it's like for very clever people. And the question was, what is risk? And some brilliant person wrote, this.
I'm sure that's apocryphal.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was probably Manchester.
Exactly. Don't say Manchester like that.
Manchester. Child 1 went to Manchester, so I'm a big fan.
Yeah. Child 1. I know. Child 2 went to Manchester.
I know. But, just saying. Jesse Armstrong
went to Manchester. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, what else is out? What else can we go and see?
Pretty Red Dress, which is a new movie by Dion Edwards, which is opening today. The story is that Natey Jones is Travis, who at the very beginning of the film comes out of prison and is met by his partner Candice, who's played by Alexandra Burke, of course, former X Factor winner turned multi-platform superstar. She is a diehard Tina Turner fan, absolutely loves Tina Turner. And she has been offered the chance to audition for a big show about Tina Turner. And this is potentially a big break for her. She goes to a clothes shop with Travis looking for something to wear. And they find this pretty red dress, which has got kind of like tassels and, very Tina Turner, very, very eye-catching. But it's a lot of money. And there's a question about, are we going to be able to afford it? And, Meanwhile, they have a daughter who is a teenager who, as with anyone going through adolescence, is a mixture of uncertain about herself and sometimes stroppy with her parents. Here's a clip.
How would you show a boy you like them personally? Yeah, like as a female. We've been chilling and stuff, but I think he just thinks that we're friends.
Well, it's the 5 senses, babe. Right, you listening? Eye contact. Very, very important. Touch. Touch his arm, touch his hand. Sound. Voice. Don't overlook it. Talk. Like, laugh at all of his jokes. Smell. Excuse me, appreciate the smell. That's Chanel. You'll get me going with that one. And last but not least, taste. Well, you can save that one for when you two are.
Chanel, such a pervert.
So, Temilola Olatunbosun as the young daughter, Nat Jones as Travis, and Alexandra Burke as Candice. And so you have these three different strands of the story. Somebody who's kind of trying to find their way in life as a young person, somebody who is suddenly offered the opportunity of a lifetime that maybe their dreams have been, and somebody else who's come out of prison and wants to reestablish themselves as the man of the house. But in that scene in which they buy the dress, an interesting thing happens, which is that Dean Edwards, the director, concentrates our attention on his face, not hers. And you see him looking at the dress and think, is he worried because it's too expensive that they can't afford it? Does he want to buy it anyway so that he can demonstrate his love for his partner? Or is there something else going on that you're not entirely sure about? And then as the drama progresses, you discover that each one of them has a kind of a disjunct between the side of themselves that they know about and the thing that they project to the world. Most centrally, in the case of Travis, whose attraction to the dress is not simply that he thinks it will look fabulous on his girlfriend. And what the film then does, in a way that I think is really kind of fascinating, is that the director said it's about emotion, and the key emotion is shame. And she also said that what she wanted to do was to ask what happens, what's the cost of suppressing the deepest part of ourselves? So on the one hand, you've got something which is a kind of, an upbeat, comedic edge drama about somebody desperately wanting to play Tina Turner. And of course, she is a brilliant singer and she does the audition with the piano and all the rest of it. On the other hand, you've got a coming of age story, somebody sort of trying to find who they are and, but keeping secrets from her parents. And on the other hand, you've got a very sort of performative version of machismo. It's always good to say macho, but machismo. About somebody who's, they want to assert themselves as a strong man, but they have a side to them which is absolutely contradictory of that, and also somebody who is torn between that thing about they want to keep one part of themselves completely secret, but they also desperately want to show that part of themselves to the world. And I think what the film does really nicely and in a really, really engaging and upbeat way is to take those kind of complex issues and to play them out as a drama with music. I mean, there are times that it virtually tips over into being a musical. It has musical numbers in it. And it's not that everyone bursts into song, but because of the Tina Turner auditions. And it's also interesting that there's something magical about the dress. We were talking about In Fabric, the Peter Strickland film, which I absolutely loved, in which a dress passes from person to person and has a transformative effect on them. And in the case of that, it's kind of mesmeric. Well, this has got like a fairy tale edge to it. There is something magical about the dress. So, it's kind of like, on the one hand, the spectrum, you've got, Some Like It Hot, and at the other end, you've got In Fabric, and somewhere in the middle of that is this film, is Pretty Red Dress. And it also has that kind of, we talked about Rye Lane recently. Rye Lane is set in locations that you recognize, but it's about characters who are dreaming of other worlds, their heads in the clouds. And I think it straddles that really, really nicely. And I think in the end, the message of the film is, you can dance to different beats without losing your footing. And I think that that's a really sort of positive and an uplifting message. I really liked it. And I think we'll hear a lot more of Dion Edwards, and the performances are terrific.
Cinema release?
Cinema release, absolutely.
Okay, what's on next? You can get in touch, correspondence@KermodeMayo.com. Before we get to our correspondent this week, Maura O'Leary, LTL, BA, no-ons, skin in my teeth, University of Massachusetts at Amherst in 1993. Dear Lestat and Blade, I was delighted to hear that Stephen Moyer, an actor whose work I have long enjoyed and appreciated, was not only an MTL of your wonderful show, but also a contributor in the form of a voice memo about the film he recently directed. As a fan of Mr. Moyers, I may be able to help clarify a couple of the comments in his recording. The allusion to teeth was likely a reference to Mr. Moyers' time starring in the HBO series True Blood, in which he played a vampire. Also, the good lady thespian he mentioned is the Academy Award-winning actress Anna Paquin, another star of the show with the teeth. Thank you for your endlessly entertaining podcast. Tinkety-tong, down with bad vampires and up with the nice ones, from Maura Leary. Thank you, Maura. This week's correspondent, here we go.
Hello, Mark and Simon. This is Sarah Keneline from the Screen Studies Centre at Manchester Metropolitan University. Next week, we'll be celebrating with the brilliant Neil Brand, a celebration of Anthony Burgess at the piano. This is on the 22nd of June in Home, Manchester. We look forward to seeing people come and celebrate the wonders of silent cinema, including The Wrecker, Asquith's Underground and Chaplin's Easy Street. Tickets are available from the Home box office and online. We look forward to seeing you on the 22nd of June.
That was Dr. Cirque Lloyd. I hope I've got that roughly right. Senior lecturer in film studies and American studies and founding member of the Manchester Centre for Gothic Studies.
May I just second that emotion in terms of the Neil Brand thing? You don't want to miss Neil Brand doing this. The man is a genius, and it's an absolute joy to watch him doing this sort of thing.
If you'd like to attend the Anthony Burgess at the Piano event celebrating silent cinema, 22nd of June, 6:15, head to the Home box office and online. If you'd like to be a correspondent, tell us about your event or anything to do with cinema. Send your 20-second or whatever you fancy, really, audio trailer about your event anywhere in the world to correspondence@kermodeandmayo.com. And Stephen Moyer got such a great response to his message. If you're a celebrity, if you're a well-known actor and you would like to send us a voice note, we'll put it out.
Can I just mention very quickly something which we completely forgot to, is that Sanj is in...
I was in The Flash.
He's in The Flash.
Sanj Bhaskar. And I came out and I messaged him and he said he was concerned that he didn't make the edit, but he definitely did.
Yeah, because he hadn't said to me or you, hey, I've just done a bit in The Flash.
I don't think he thought he was going to make the final version.
Although the final version is like 2 hours and really long. I mean, I think they threw everything but Sanj is in there.
Yes, he is now a DC superstar.
He's absolutely fab. That's right. Sanj has entered the DC multiverse.
Doing American accent.
Doing an American accent very convincingly.
It's the end of take one. This has been a Sony Music Entertainment production. The team was Lily Hambley, Ryan O'Meara, Sancho Panza, Gully Tickell, Gully. Beth Perkin is the guest booker and assistant producer. Hannah Talbot was the producer. Simon Paul's the redactor. Mark, what is your film of the week?
It's Fern Gully. Pretty Red Dress.
Take 2 is also available. In fact, it's landed at the same time.
Boom.
Take 3 with you on Wednesday.
Here it is.
Thanks very much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed watching it as much as we enjoyed making it. While you're here, check out all the other videos because they're cool too, aren't they?
Yeah, and if you want to keep up to date with everything Kermode and Mayo's Take, then check out our social channels.
I mean, why wouldn't you?
I mean, I would. I have done.
Excellent.